Hello, everybody. My name is Laura. I'm a junior account manager at Swyrite PR. We're a dedicated esports and gaming agency. If you want to hear a little bit more about us, we have a lovely stand out front, and we're also sponsoring the karaoke tonight. So please come 9:30 down in the beatbox area. So it'd be lovely to have you all there. Should we go for some introductions? So do you want to kick off? Maybe Eric?
Hey, there we go. It's really loud up here. Cool, my name is Eric Londre. Last year, during the pandemic, I sort of realized what was happening with the Metaverse and the democratization of virtual worlds. And I realized I had to quit my job at Fnatic to start my own company that is called Carta. And what we do is in-game experiential marketing, creating brand experiences inside of games like Roblox, Fortnite, Counter-Strike, and more further down the line. Yeah, that's me. Do you want to?
It's a beautiful story, but mine's really not the same. I have been in a number of startups and publishers conceptualizing programmatic advertising. So in the pandemic last year, I moved over to Bidstack. We are a in-game advertising technology platform that puts ads at real time into spaces that feel realistic to the environment. So if you think about the pitch side hoardings on a football game or the banners around a racetrack, we're able to place ads in those spaces.
Hi everyone, my name is Moritz. I've been in the ad tech business since 13 years, but I moved into gaming, specifically advertising, when I worked for King, when Activision bought King, and that's how I started my gaming experience. I never left. I loved gaming since day one. I'm currently working in a startup called Face It. It's a competitive gaming platform. So everything that it's pre and post gaming session, we offer to the users the experience to create a new experience when it comes to the gaming. So you can, the social part, you can create your missions, you can create a hub. And I was hired a month and a half ago to monetize the free users.
Great, it was wonderful to have you all. So I wanted to start off by providing a bit of context around the esports audience. What have you guys been seeing around with regards to esports and gaming audiences? Is there a difference? What kind of demographic are you seeing? Who wants to kick us off? Eric?
I can go first. So I think with the esports audience, it's all about, providing value, be authentic, give them something that they like, and then they will like you back. It's as simple as that. Don't ask what they can do for you, ask what you can do for them. And if you do that, give them something, give them entertainment, and they will like you. Yeah, that's it.
To echo what you just said, I agree. Basically, you have like the esports, which is a cohort of the gaming, right? But they are way more hardcore. So speaking again from a product manager perspective and how you can monetize there, yes, they are advanced. So they, for example, they all use ad blockers and stuff, especially because of Face It, we have a lot of PC users. But at the same time, they can be very, very interested when you give them what they want. And they actually turned out to be good spenders, as long as you give them what they like. But yeah, they are way, way more hardcore than gaming, especially if it comes to competition, etc.
From our perspective, we see the gaming audience and the esports audience to be quite different. If you think about there's 3 billion gamers in the world, we can't really say that all gamers are the same. And our technology is trying to harness that in terms of having one-to-one conversations with each gamer individually, regardless of whether or not they're playing the same game. I think the only time really that we have a crossover between whether a gaming audience or the esports audience is the same is when we try to use in-game advertising within the streaming context, and then obviously that's when it crossovers. But you wouldn't really say like someone who watches hours and hours of Rainbow Six plays Candy Crush. Or maybe you do, but yeah, very different.
And then one thing that is quite notorious is esports audience tend to be kind of less receptive, a little bit more difficult to monetize. I don't know, guys, if you have found that and what's kind of been the general reception to in-game advertising?
So just to follow up what I said earlier, right? So I don't think they're less receptive. I think they're just more selective. Like, I think they are like a different audience. Gaming is a new vertical, right? It's a completely new generation. It's a generation that grew up with computers. God, that sounds old, but it's true. Basically, they are very advanced, so they know exactly what they want and how to achieve it, right? And that's also through the PC platform. Is way easier than, for example, mobile or I don't know, like console in general, because it's more a closed system where PCs more give them flexibility. But I think once you reach the funnel, again, when you give them some endemic brands and you actually put it into the right context, they're actually becoming big spenders, like I said. So I think reception is not the right word. I think they're being more selective. So it's your responsibility as a product manager to make sure you give them the right brand that they want. So and how you do it.
I was just going to add to that because I think it's really important for to understand that gamers or the esports audience is not necessarily receptive, because I totally agree. I think they respond better to authenticity, and when a brand actually does something that is clever or actually adds value to the game that they're either watching or they're playing. There was a study, I think, conducted by Nielsen that basically showed that gamers actually understand why there are ads or why games need to be commercialized. And I think esports audiences are very aware that if a game is trying to commercialize itself, it's that it needs to kind of progress and build on it. And I think esports audiences are receptive to that because they want to kind of see this channel grow. They want to see their games get better and better. They want to see the championships to keep rolling over into next year. And it's very much like to real life sports. It's just completely different world.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what both of you are saying. I think I wonder if it's actually like, because for me, the esports audience do like to spend money on things that they like. They sub to their favorite streamers that they could watch for free. They like to buy new peripherals, decorate build out their gaming setup. So I think it's just about, providing value, be authentic, and you will get love back and sales.
Great. And then one thing I wanted to kind of build on is that kind of user experience. So for example, some of the biggest esports in the world, if you watch them like 2-3 years ago, brands in broadcasting the game are non-existent, but now we're seeing a lot of kind of our big tier 1 esports. You're tuning in, you're seeing brands, in the game, across the broadcast. How do you keep that, like, basically a positive experience to them? How do you, build into being authentic?
I think the answer is brand activation. So, who said value? You said value. So, bring value to the user. That is exactly what you have to do. If you see something streaming and you see pop-up logos, obviously it's going to piss off the user. But it's how you use this intrusivity after the game. For example, at Face It, we did something really interesting with a betting company for the Major League event in LA, which was sponsoring post-event specific for the winners, talking about, for example, the data around the game, how they performed. That's what the viewers love it. They really want to see the inside, and if they see your brand next to it, they're sponsored by etc., they love it. And another thing that we did was, not sure if you remember Paul the Octopus, the World Cup a long time ago. So with the betting, we brought in a chicken, and there was every competition there was two meals with the brand with the name of the team. And depending on where the chicken was going, people were cheering and thinking that they're going to win the other team. So again, it's think about brand activation. It's how you actually integrate within the experience, especially if you're being intrusive as a logo.
I think that was such a good example with the chickens, because the chickens is like a meme part of Counter-Strike community. So attaching a brand activation around a meme or something that the community talks about and reacts to, I think is a super good way of doing it. Like basically, if you're a brand trying to connect with a particular gaming audience, either look for a behavior that already exists that aligns with your values, or look for a problem that the gamers might have, like a certain part of the broadcast is boring. how do we make it more fun, you know, or like basically look for the gaps and try to plug them, or yeah, embrace the culture and amplify them. And I think that's a good way to like sort of strategize when you're looking for these, you know, how to provide value.
Wonderful. So it seems like it's a lot about kind of what you do outside the game in order to make it authentic when obviously people are spotting these brands inside, which is really interesting. I wanted to kind of ask you guys about any kind of campaigns you've worked on, like key takeaways, any learnings that you would like to share? Maybe Yazin, you want to kick us off?
Key campaigns. Paco Rabanne, yes, Paco Rabanne award-winning campaign. Yeah, I mean, it was the first time that a like luxury beauty brand, because it was for the fragrance, had kind of tapped into this space and owned. I think what the whole key messaging of the brand was, and they've been doing it on out of home for quite some time, was it's Invictus. It's about empowering you. It's a very male-driven fragrance, and they wanted to dominate kind of that sporting environment with the in-game as well. So they kind of did that whole kind of using in-game as the vessel for their kind of real-world stuff, which worked really well for them. And I guess the key takeaway was that it was award-winning. Great. But quite recently, we've been working on a campaign for Marriott Hotels, and they're kind of doing a very multifaceted campaign in a sense, again, using their real-life sponsorship as a vessel to get into the in-game element. So they've been doing an activation in Madden Mobile because they're a big NFL sponsor in the US. Anyone that is interested in tennis, download Tennis Clash right now because they're doing a activation by branding the tennis courts. And it's had phenomenal results. Like in 1 week with tennis, their sponsorship of Tennis Clash, they had 145,000 downloads of their Marriott skin. So it's showing that people are receptive to the brand, because obviously in terms of like the amount of different skins and strings, I think they call it within the game, there is multiple that they can do it, but obviously people are quite invested to go and get something that's cool as Marriott. So, but yeah.
For me, it was Visa. The reason why is because it was a non-endemic brand into gaming, but they were really smart on the activation. Basically, we did a co-branded Visa card with Faceit, and we offer them, because Faceit has Faceit points, so depending how many times you win, you get collect points and you win prizes. So the more that you spend money with the Visa card that was co-branded with us, you get collect points. And you also access a specific exclusive competition. So it was really successful because we got 250 million impression and I think 70,000 activation of cards. But my key the takeaway was simply that the effort of the non-endemic brand to be into gaming. And what I'm talking about is it was for the Russia market, and in Russia, to activate a new card, you have to physically go into a branch. And it was very manual. What they did was actually trying to translate everything digitally. And it was successful because they knew the audience. Like no one probably, the gaming esports generation will be bothered to go to the probably, but definitely they helped into the conversion.
Yeah, for me, Carta is very early days. It's a startup, so I can't talk about what we're doing right now. It's not out yet, but I can talk about like the campaigns that sort of inspired me to start Carta, which when I was still head of events at Fnatic. And Lavazza, the coffee brand, came to us and asked us for a new, exciting way to enter into esports and gaming for an Italy-focused campaign, right? So Fnatic has this super popular Fortnite player called Power. He's a basically ninja in Italy, huge Fortnite star. And we created a custom Lavazza Power/Fnatic map that basically brought to life the idea that they are both icons of their country, so we call the map Icons of Italy. It had a giant coffee machine surrounded by iconic Italian buildings, a mansion filled with memes and references that Power and his community knew. And then there was a you could enter into the coffee machine and played like obstacle course, death run. And then we, combined that with a live stream where he unboxed the coffee machine on stream, then, had some coffee, jumped into the branded world, and his content from this Fortnite map did better than his regular unsponsored content. And, I think it had 3 million impressions, like 800,000 views, and the most exciting numbers, like 20,000 people play the map, and they spent an average of 27 minutes inside of this branded Lavazza environment. And I think that's the number I like the most, like, because I'm an event marketeer, like usually you don't get that long time with people inside of your branded world. And I think that's something really unique with this new opportunity of in-game advertising and in-game experiential marketing.
Wonderful, and it's great to hear so many big brands entering the space and doing interesting things. And kind of building on what you said about Fortnite and having all these kind of elements in game which you can use, play on, I wanted to talk a little bit about the technology in game and how it's kind of advanced and it allows us to kind of play more. We've got AR, VR coming in. How has technology advanced and how is that helping with kind of in-game advertising?
Jump to it there. For us in particular, I think I would say it's all well and good for brands to kind of get into this space, but for a lot of marketers, a lot of agencies that we work with, it's all about return of investment. So I think for us, in terms of technological advancements, it's about how we can further use it as a way to measure ROI of a campaign, firstly, and secondly, how can we make sure that each ad dollar is working as hard as it possibly can, as effective as it possibly can be as well. And that fundamentally comes down to data, but not being in the sense of really creepy and calling out people's names, but just making sure that the right ad reaches the right people, because people can do that on social at the moment, and you can do that in other forms of media, but it doesn't mean that we can't do it in-game. And we're kind of starting to tap into it, but I think over the next kind of year or so, we'll start to really kind of see more iterations of it happening, and that kind of personalization happening a lot more. And then on the back of that, obviously, then you'll start to see, hopefully, kind of more receptiveness around that space.
So I think the technology I'm the most excited about, and that's going to change a lot, is which I know is coming, is that, when Travis Scott played inside of Fortnite, people say it was a concert visited by, 12 million people, but it was actually, 1 million concerts with 12 people in each, right? It wasn't actually one experience for everyone, one world that people existed in at the same time. But that is being sorted, and I think that's like where the metaverse really becomes exciting, because it actually becomes a continuous experience that we can have, tens of thousands of people or millions of people can share an actual experience and be in one world, which is, super exciting. And on the sort of more short term, I'm working in virtual platforms like Fortnite, Roblox, etc., and they are constantly getting better in terms of what you can do with brand experiences. So the future is very, very exciting.
Cheers, Eric. You made mine sound really dull.
Wait until you hear my answer. I think the technology is adapting. So ad tech is seriously moving towards the gaming experience, supporting, for example, game engines. So Unity was the usual suspect when I've seen the past 3 years. It was probably the only game engine that was to be supported. But I can see, for example, the CMP, so the consent management platform for GDPR. I can see now there is an SDK for Fiction Factory. I can see there is an SDK for many other game engines that you wouldn't think of any interest before. So I think it's adapting as well what Yaz said in terms of ROI. Viewability. Viewability is becoming a big thing because especially because technically users can't click on the brand within the gaming experience. So viewability is a key part, and they're adapting into the 3D environment, and that's very exciting, very much to see how this is going to evolve, especially because ad tech technology is very established, and it's hard for them to think out of the box, but now that there is lots of pressure from advertisers, they have to adapt.
Lovely. And then one thing I wanted to jump on is what Eric was talking about, the Metaverse. So it is dominating headlines somewhat at the moment. If you don't mind just giving an overview of what the Metaverse is. And then the question I wanted to ask is this the future of advertising? Will brands, instead of putting their spend towards billboards and traditional advertising, is this what it's going to be?
Let's see. So it's much bigger than that. It's much bigger than the future of advertising, right? It's the future of the human experience, and like basically video games and virtual worlds is where we're gonna live more and more of our lives. And so it's gonna not just disrupt advertising, but commerce in general, education, entertainment, everything, right? That's the future I believe in. You can buy into it. Me and Zuckerberg, right? But I think there's a lot of people believing in that, and it is massively exciting. What was the question again? What is the Metaverse? So yeah, the Metaverse is the sort of next step in internet, right? It's like you had like the World Wide Web coming, and then you had mobile internet through smartphones, and this is the sort of next big disruptive phase where we're gonna live and spend more time and work inside of virtual worlds.
My image of Metaverse when it comes to advertising, it's actually quite funny. I picture my avatar walking around this virtual city, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen, because funny enough, it could be that traditional advertising, like the billboards that you found across, in the streets, might become the new digital metaverse of advertising. So advertiser might buy spaces within the virtual city. But apart from that, I don't really have an opinion. I'm not so Mark Zuckerberg oriented like you in that case. I think it's a big gamble. It's coming. I can't see it. How fast will it happen? I think.
Sorry, but I think it's just about seeing where, because correct me if you might disagree, but I think basically marketing and us marketeers needs to follow, and the brands, they need to follow where the audience is, and that I think we can all agree. We might not all believe in this big Zuckerberg vision or metaverse, etc., but we can all agree that people will spend more and more time inside of video games. And if people are spending more and more time inside of video games, that means that they are spending less time elsewhere, in other worlds where brands can't reach them. And that's why I believe that brands are going to have to be present in these worlds, right?
I don't really have anything to add, to be honest. But no, it's a strange one, because since Facebook kind of made their announcement around Meta, that awful name, it feels like for an average civilian, like myself and my friends who don't really immerse themselves in the buzzword of Metaverse every day, it kind of feels like there's just going to be this one day where all of a sudden our digital interaction changes, but we're actually kind of doing it now, because there are ways in which we're now working out which is very different. Like if you use Zwift, it's a gamified version of doing a spin class, right? You have your avatar you're driving through, and then you might do it in the morning, and then you'll go onto a Zoom call. And then there's ways in which you can have avatars in Zoom calls now and stuff like that. So what's the difference between putting on your VR headset, doing a yoga class, and then going straight to your 9 a.m. conference? It's kind of just actually more of a seamless world, right? But I don't know, some people are just, they're kind of getting freaked out by it, because me and my friends we have a Sunday social every single weekend where we go for dinner, and I'm moving to New York, and they were like, well, what are we going to do now? And I said, well, we can use the Metaverse to go for pizza on a Sunday night, and they're like, are you joking me? It's not going to happen, but I don't know, I think we'll all adapt to it.
Yeah, I think that's also, it's awkward maybe for you, and we're all a bit older here on the stage. But like if you're growing up right now, if you're 12, 13, like you have used Roblox as your way to hang out with friends. That has played the same role maybe social media did when I was a kid, or Facebook, etc. It's where you meet your friends, where you chat, where you talk. So I think it's going to be much more natural to them, and it's also not going to be like just like these changes happen gradually, right? It's not just everything changes overnight. It's all of a sudden our behaviors have changed. I guess we all in this room have sort of stopped using Facebook for anything, right? And that happened sort of gradually in the last year, and it was such a big part of how we used to communicate, and now it's not anymore. So constant change, but not like a sudden the metaverse is here. That's like, yeah.
So we've still got a little way to go then, yeah.
We got some time to go.
One thing I wanted to dive in is to some of the brands in the space, especially the luxury brands. Fashion brands in particular have been quite active across esports and gaming. We've had Gucci and Roblox, and then Animal Crossing has done quite a few different activations. What do you think is the draw for these luxury fashion brands?
Cultural moments, a dying clientele. So these are some of a few things of why luxury brands are doing it. I think it's definitely because they want to tap into something that is very cool, very innovative, and I think fashion brands don't shy away from it, particularly brands like Balenciaga, who are known to be quite cool, quite innovative with the clothing itself. Actually, they're not. You can buy an IKEA bag for $2,000. Don't get it. When you look at the kind of what the luxury brands are doing, they are. I think what their main goal is to kind of really tap into a younger audience, because, I mean, we're affluent, we're influential, and that's where the money is. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense for them.
Cool. You made some really good points there. I think that, it's basically they're trying to reach an audience, right? And gaming is the future of media and socializing, etc. And they're gonna have to be there. And also, they are all aware of the digital items and the amount that are, of money being made through digital items in different games and platforms like Roblox. And of course, they know that that's the future. And they know they're going to have to be present there. And I think it, if we in 10 years, it might be a big chunk of the money that they make will be made on these platforms.
Sorry. There we go. Sorry about that. It's also cool, right? Because I think even if, as a younger audience, you can't afford a £2,000 jumper from Gucci or Burberry, but you have it in game, and your avatar or your character can wear it and actually only costs £10, it's quite a nice, accessible thing for them as well. So I think it's also about accessibility, even if it doesn't convert to like the real life sale of it. It's still kind of generating that brand awareness like early on, so that when they do kind of get to an older stage, they can purchase that.
Is that right? Back to the meta, so it's happening.
Always about the meta. I can't even say it now, it's not working.
And then I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what you think is going to be the next innovation in in-game marketing. Any kind of things that you've got your eye on or think will be kind of the next trends?
Permanent. None of us are working now. Maybe it's me. Maybe there we go. I think it's kind of starting to see more like playable game experiences that are kind of permanently created by brands. I know, like I say Balenciaga again, you might think I'm obsessed with that brand, I'm not. But they kind of created this afterworld where they showcase their one of their collections, and it became like a gaming environment. I think we'll start to see more brands kind of trying to create their own space within that gaming, adding to the metaverse. Brands trying to create their own elements of the metaverse. That's what I'm quite excited about. I've heard a lot of what you're excited about. I'm excited about that.
So excited. Do you want to? Okay. But what I think the big change in strategy that will happen, which is basically how most brands have activated inside of video games and express themselves inside of these worlds, has been short-term PR strategies. So I think we're going to see a more long-term presence inside of video games, because if, let's say, you're a brand that is constantly selling products to gamers, you should have a constant presence inside of the worlds they inhabit and host new events, do new activations, competitions, not just go in there like Gucci did on Roblox and have a lot of press for a week and then leave the audience never to sort of return. But then you have another brand like Vans who did just that. They created a constant presence in Roblox and has one of the most popular skate games on the platform, and has now 35 million plays on the game inside of and has probably sold digital items for $1 million or so.
Hello? Oh, okay, thank you. I was saying actually brands tend to invest into gaming. So you mentioned about Vans, right? They build their own games as well, and it actually was very successful. It was a skateboard game. So that's clearly the direction that I see. So if you can't then invest into a third-party game, they're probably going to build it themselves. We're back when Adidas bought MyFitnessPal. What is it? Was it like? Yeah, Under Armour. That's it. So that's the way I see.
That's a really interesting thing to discuss, because I think it's super. What I'm most excited about is in the meeting between two worlds about Vans being inside of Roblox, because something happens in that meeting of two. Basically, if Ariana Grande had flown through just a random virtual world, it would be hard to relate to for a gamer, because basically. If you played video games, you play a new video game, it takes a while to figure out how to move around in that world, and basically you're a bit lost at the beginning, right? So I think for me, I'm more excited about brands activating inside of virtual worlds that already has an audience, because I think immersion is instant, and also you have a culture to sort of play off of and connect with, which you don't if you build your own freestanding game, which it's basically, I would like to compare it to like, you can host your big product launch event in 2 hours drive outside of London, and if you're a cool enough brand and the event is cool enough, people will come, right? But most likely, and most brands, you're not. You're better off doing your product launch in London where people can easily access it. And so I think it's interesting to see. I've looked into this and I haven't seen a single sort of, BMW did a big event with Coldplay on a freestanding sort of metaverse platform. And they had no views on YouTube almost, and I didn't see any hype in sort of gaming media, and they haven't announced how many people checked out their experience. I don't know, maybe it was mega successful and they're just not telling us. But I mean, if you have Coldplay on, you should get hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people showing up at least. It's one of the biggest bands in the world. If they did it inside of Roblox, they would have had 20 million. That's like a guarantee. 20 million people would have visited the Coldplay BMW experience. So, yeah, you can host your event 2 hours away in some cool castle, or you can, rent a good venue in central London. It's a bit more challenging to do it yourself,
Great. So we only have a few minutes left. I don't know if anyone in the audience had any questions. Yes, Kieran.
I mean, we're ex-colleagues, so Our technology is actually designed, and actually Moritz is probably, he can talk more about it, is to put the power back in the publisher's hands. So to kind of paint the picture, every time an ad comes from either through a buying platform or it comes directly through us from the agency, the creative agency, we have to submit it for approval by the publisher. So the publisher has all the power to say yes or no whether or not they want the ad in the game. I would say 9 times out of 10 they would say yes, and because it's our duty as the tech company and as the link between the publisher and the agency to make sure that we're educating brands effectively about how to do how to create the ad well and how to make sure that it resonates in game well. Because there's no point going and getting an ad that's been on the Daily Mail and trying to put it into in game. It just wouldn't work. You have to make sure that the creative looks and feels like it should be there. And there's a lot of education process that goes into that, especially educating creative agencies, because it's a total new media format. But to answer your question, I've gone on a really long route to get there, but the publisher has the power.
It was a really good question because from my experience when I worked at Bitstack, when I started early, the idea was to create a new vertical advertising so the publisher could diversify the income, right? Not rewarded video, not display advertising, anything. The way I saw it when I started was actually a perfect non-intrusive way to monetize the users, but don't interrupt their experience. And that's what I still think today is branding. Yes, there are challenges because you can't click, and like I said, ad tech, the programmatic were very established. So the only ROI sometimes the advertiser understand is the click. But branding and viewability is a big thing. So I think publishers are reacting really well. What we need to be careful is what technology you install into the game. That's probably something that you always have to be careful because publishers are very user first, of course, but at the same time they're really jealous of what you can put into the code. So when I was a King, for example, we made a deal with Facebook Audience Network, and their SDK, I know Candy Crush was a heavy game already because it plays offline, but their SDK was very heavy at the same time, so it tends to crash the game. And that's where publisher, and we lost a lot of users, so we had to go backwards, and we understand. So publisher love it, you just need to be careful what you put into the game.
On my end, Carta only uses platforms where the publisher wants us to be active. So basically what Epic Games wants to see is a diverse platform where there's every brand in the world is active, obviously making events and content and concerts and competitions that, are relevant for the audience. And the same thing with Roblox. Roblox is already, this is what they want. They want to create the Metaverse, right? And that includes brands, artists, IPs. They want them all to be active on the platform. So for us, we're a service provider in that ecosystem. But we also have direct contacts with all those, with Epic and Fortnite, etc.
Great. Well, I think that's a wonderful load of answers to leave it on. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you to my panelists, some really lovely insights. And I hope everyone has a lovely rest of the conference. And please come to karaoke. Thank you. Thank you.